I'm Ardra Shepherd, and this is Tripping on Air, a place to talk shit about what it's like to have MS. Normally, I like to make everything about me, but MS also affects the people we love. So weighing in from the partner perspective is Alex Hajar, my friend whose wife also has MS. Join us monthly as we dish about everything from symptoms to stigma. If you have MS or you love someone who does, we want to connect with you. MS is a disease of the central nervous system, which means whatever can go wrong might go wrong. Most of us know MS can cause fatigue, loss of balance, or difficulty with mobility. But today, we want to highlight the rare or unusual symptoms you might not associate with MS. If you've ever asked yourself, is it MS or PMS? MS or is it aging? MS or did I sleep weird? Wait, is Mercury in retrograde? This episode is for you. We're talking about 10 MS symptoms that prove it's not all in your head, it's in your brain and spinal cord. Get ready to say, OMG, I didn't know MS could do that. Or, OMG, I knew it was MS. Alex, let's dive right in because there's a lot to cover. Did you know that MS can cause hiccups?
I didn't know that, actually. I had no idea that was like a rare... Is it a rare thing?
I think it's rare. Or it's definitely unusual. I feel like I manifested hiccups by preparing for this episode last night. I had a violent attack of hiccups, and when I have hiccups, I'm really dramatic about it.
Okay.
Do you have a cure for hiccups? I feel like everyone has like a home remedy for hiccups.
Yeah, my like old wives' tale cure for hiccups is peanut butter. And if it doesn't really cure the hiccups, then I still got to eat some peanut butter. I just really like peanut butter. But since that's also kind of a mythic solution, I like to think that's my favorite.
But does it work?
Sometimes.
I've never heard that one. I think you made it up.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works?
I feel like sometimes it works, but it's really just a good excuse to eat peanut butter. I think because it's the stickiness, right? It's you get it stuck in the back of your throat and it sort of interrupts what's going on.
I do have a cure for hiccups and it works every time, but it foiled me last night. As I said, I got the hiccups, I think, preparing for this show. And then I had to pee all night because my cure is to plug my nose and then pound as much water, like just to drink water until I'm definitely going to drown. And then that's it. And it works.
I've heard of that solution before. Flat water or fizzy water?
Oh my God, flat water. Are you insane?
I am actually. If you
Hiccups.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I get it.
Hiccups are involuntary spasms of the diaphragm. MS hiccups are persistent. They involve disruptions in the neural pathways that are responsible for regulating breathing and swallowing. So I guess that's the explanation of how MS can cause hiccups. But everyone gets hiccups. I don't know that my hiccups last night were necessarily caused by MS.
Compounded by MS, maybe?
I'm really dramatic about it. Like Carrie will hiccup 3 times and then that's it. It's over. If I don't implement the cure, the water chugging cure, like they don't go away. It's torture.
What's Carrie's solution? Does he just blink?
I don't know.
I don't get
it. He's an uncomplicated body.
All right. What's the next rare symptom of MS?
Hearing loss. So about 6% of people with MS present hearing loss as their first or presenting symptom. This actually happened to me. I had optic neuritis was my very first symptom. And then, I don't know, within that same attack, like maybe a week later, I lost not all hearing, but some hearing in the opposite ear to where I had the optic neuritis. The good news, it was scary. It was quite scary. But I was told repeatedly, like, hearing loss doesn't happen with MS. You must have something else. But it's not true.
Thanks.
It can happen, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That said, deafness caused by MS is exceedingly rare, and most people who have that as a presenting symptom do improve. I fully recovered. I have exceptional hearing.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a permanent thing.
I mean, never say never. I think MS can do what it wants, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's not definitely a permanent thing. It's like it can go away.
I had full recovery and that symptom has never come back. It's been more than 20 years. I don't know if this is MS or not, but I feel like I blame it on MS. I do sometimes get this weird sensation where I feel like I'm breathing through my ears. It's really hard to describe. And anytime I've mentioned it to a doctor, they just look at me like, So if you are watching or listening and you've had ear breathing, please reach out. I need support. I need to know that it's real.
There's something here about sudden uncontrollable laughter or crying. What's that all about?
That is the pseudobulbar affect. So I don't actually know statistically how common or uncommon this symptom is, but it feels like it would be pretty disturbing, pretty upsetting, right? So this can happen. You can spontaneously burst into tears or laughter, despite feeling possibly the complete opposite emotion, which can be really frustrating and confusing for anyone you're interacting with. It sounds like a really troubling symptom. I'd love to talk to somebody who experiences this. There are treatments that can help reduce these emotional outbursts, but
Are they behavioral treatments or
medications?
There's medications for this. Okay.
Yep. I mean, I feel like with most of these medications that help MS symptoms, it probably takes the edge off. I don't know if it cures it entirely, but it's not a symptom I've had. I mean, I certainly understand emotional outbursts. I'm good at them.
Yeah, but I think like anything you can't control becomes scary, even if it's a laugh, right? And like, especially if it's in like an awkward moment, that would be terrifying, right?
That's part of the difference, is that the affect doesn't match the feeling. So if you want to get really angry, but you're actually laughing, or, if you're, yeah, right? Like, I feel like that would be.
Just to think of it kind of sounds like it would be something, I don't know, like, yeah, maybe in like a sitcom, right? Like you wouldn't necessarily think this is real life, right? Like the opposite of what you want to express is happening. So yeah, and if you can't control it, becomes all the more worse. I guess this is quite rare, though. This sounds like I've never even heard of this, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I've never heard of it. I mean, I've heard of people being overtly like emotional, whatever, or having these outbursts, but I haven't heard of like a symptom of it as it being a symptom of something, or a symptom of MS for that matter. So that's interesting.
I think it's another one of those that's, I don't know that it's necessarily rare so much as it is uncommon. Yeah, I don't know. Drop us some comments if you're experiencing this and what it's like, because it's possible, that people are experiencing some of these symptoms and not really knowing that they are MS symptoms. And it is something that you want to bring to your doctor's attention, because there are things you can do.
Yeah, it's good. We're doing a bit of data collection here, I think, as well, right? Like we want to, and there's strength in numbers. The more people that speak up, even if you're halfway across the world, it's more evidence that this is a thing and this is real, right? Because we've discussed in the past how sometimes you'll go to a doctor and they might just say that this is not, where they're gaslighting you to an extent, right? But having more people who have this is a helpful number thing, right? So
yeah, and this, like, we're talking about 10 symptoms today, but when I was doing some research for this show, there are so many more rare and like wacky things that can happen. And when you think about it, it makes sense, right? Central nervous system controls the show. It's like it's in charge. So you can see how anything can kind of go haywire at some point.
Yeah, the crazy thing I find about the central nervous system, and I'm doing it now because I know what's coming next, but like it's all over your body, right? So it's everywhere and it affects everything. And so and what I'm doing right now, if you're just listening, is I'm scratching my arm, because the next rare item we're going to talk about is something itchy, right?
Oh, I was just about to scratch my head. I'm like sitting on my hands to keep from scratching. Yes, The technical, I guess, medical term, I'm not a doctor, is pruritus, but it's basically pathological itching, which is a form of dysesthesia, which is sensory disturbance, which, we all, or not we all, but many of us have experience with. I think it's kind of like a mind fuck where I'm asking my husband, like, is there something on my back? Is there like a slash across my back? I usually experience it as pain. Sometimes my feet feel wet, but this specific kind of sub-symptom, I guess, of pathological itching just sounds, ugh.
Pathological is like all the time this is happening?
Is
it
incessant itching? Like, it sounds like a form of torture, really.
But it's happening all the time, or it's like infrequently, but when it does happen, it's super intense?
I think it can be both. I think it can kind of be all the time or intermittent. Obviously, you want to get to the bottom of it. It's not going to be relieved by antihistamines if it is caused by MS. If you have dry skin or allergies, then some moisturizer and some Claritin might help, So you want to make sure, like, just because it can be MS doesn't mean that it necessarily is. But, I think you would probably know if you were just itchy all the time. It sounds so awful.
But moisturizer or olive oil based whatever is not going to solve the central nervous system issues that you're experiencing.
No, this is a situation where you would look to medications like gabapentin that might be helpful. Again, not a doctor, but you should talk to one if you have this symptom. Sounds super unpleasant. Do you ever wake up with some weird symptom and feel like, oh no, do I have MS too? Like that phenomenon that happens with med students, that hypochondria that comes with this like heightened sense of awareness, self-awareness.
Yeah, I was totally going to say I'm a bit of a hypochondriac sometimes because and it's with anything. Like if I start, I don't know, if I feel warm when I go to bed, I'm like, I'm usually cold and like this shouldn't be happening. Why am I
Maybe
so
you're
hot?
in menopause.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. MS symptoms I've woken up with, fatigue, heat exhaustion. I go to stretch first thing in the morning and I get a violent Charlie horse. I feel like those all qualify, right? Like I've heard of all of those things happening, and yeah, that would be what freaks me out. And the first thing I think, I'm like, MS, or I've got like some what are they called? Something in your eye, like if those little wormy things, like I don't know what they're called.
No,
Floaties?
I don't
They're
have
like
little
floaties.
Oh,
have you heard of this?
Yeah, that's one of the symptoms, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I think you can get them and not have MS, right? And so, like, when I see them, I'm like, shit, like, what is happening? So, yes, I've woken up with things and been instantly paranoid that I might have it.
And is Nicole just like, shut up, you don't have MS?
She's like, can you just go make coffee and we'll talk about it later.
In 10 minutes when your symptoms resolve.
Yeah, and I've totally forgotten everything. So, yeah, a bit of a hypochondriac, I'll admit it, for sure.
I think that's a thing that can happen. I think it's happened to Carrie before also, where I think it's natural. You got to keep it in check.
Yeah, and like friends I talk with regularly who are also, partners of people with MS and stuff like that, it's the same thing. You have like pain all of a sudden in a certain part of your body and you're like, shit, did I catch it? You know what I mean? That obviously doesn't sound nice or anything, but it's like that's where your mind goes, I feel like.
I think it's natural when it's something that kind of consumes the house 24/7 for it to be on your radar, for sure.
I just want to say, because it's not something that like you're necessarily, it's not there when you're born with or something, you know what I mean? Like it kind of comes out of left field, right? So you're like, is it happening to me now? Like what the fuck? So, that's the paranoia, but we should move on. Sorry. I don't want to scare people now.
Yeah, because like I guess the point is like we don't want to create paranoia if you are otherwise healthy. Like don't freak out. Headaches, for example, are pretty common in MS, but they're also pretty common in everyone. So, yeah. I'm thinking of a friend of mine Shout out Chantal, who read an article that I had done for a magazine earlier this year, and it listed a lot of symptoms, and she was also like, I have all of those. She's fine. She's okay.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know what number we're on, but osteoporosis could be considered a comorbidity of MS. So possibly not caused by MS directly, but there is some research that suggests MS itself might also cause osteoporosis. Our bones are constantly repairing and renewing themselves, and the inflammation seen in MS may affect this process. On top of that, you are at increased risk if you have MS and you are female, you've had a lot of steroids like I have, the reduced exercise, all of these things. I myself received an osteoporosis diagnosis at this tender age a couple of years ago after I fell and fractured my spine. And actually, this is not that rare. 1 in 5 people with MS actually have osteoporosis. 2 in 5 have osteopenia, which is like the precursor to osteoporosis. Despite how common this is, it's probably not on your neurologist's to-do list monitoring for osteoporosis. So this is one of those areas where patients can take control, and you need to talk to your family doctor about your risk factors so that they're monitoring for this early, which means doing vitamin D blood tests, calcium blood tests, bone density scans. Many of us are on dairy-free diets to help with MS, and that can mean that you're maybe not getting enough calcium. It's one of those things that you can have a big impact on preventatively, and then it's, it's hard because
I'm glad we never gave up cheese.
I mean, I have recently reintroduced dairy back into my diet for medical reasons. I like thinking of cheese as a health food, but I'm I'm chasing it with lactate to see if that will kind of help mitigate.
What's lactate? Is lactate like just a pure form?
No, it's like a digestive enzyme that helps you process dairy a little bit better. I don't know if it's working.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's stressful because, like many people with MS, I am at considerable risk for falls. And falls get a lot scarier when you might shatter your bones. Next symptom.
Number 6.
Formication.
Sounds dirty.
It definitely is. It's the dirtiest. Formication is the feeling of bugs crawling on your skin. Get ready to be itchy again. Like the itchiness. It's an aberrant sensory perception. And I personally don't know what's worse. Like imaginary bugs crawling on your skin or real bugs?
I mean, imaginary is terrifying because you can't see them. That's gross. Actual bugs, I mean, you could brush them off theoretically, but I try not to get into many situations where I would have that many bugs on me. But so I feel like this is closer to something that I might experience is the sensation, but they're not really there, and that's gross.
Formication. It comes from the Latin formica. Don't say you didn't learn anything on this show. Meaning,
yeah, isn't this like ants?
It means
this must
ants.
Be like ants.
Yeah,
I feel like that's it's a name for ants, right? Yeah.
This is why I'm an indoor girl. Who cares about MS?
Okay, so what do you feel though? There's an umbrella of sensory abnormalities, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of like we talked about with the itching, pain, burning. Sometimes my feet feel wet. It's like this, in your head, not real. It's very unpleasant and very uncomfortable. I don't like it. Actually, sometimes.
And you've experienced this.
I do get this. It feels like it feels like there's something crawling on my head from time to time, especially when I'm really tired.
How long does it usually last for you? I know that, everybody's different, but how long does it usually last for you?
Oh, it's hard to say. I feel it happens sometimes in the evening when I'm tired or when I'm hot. I feel like I can kind of make it go away by touching my head and like just like drawing attention to like some other sensation, if that makes sense.
Okay. So there's no
Yeah.
there's no like medicine for it, or
I think it would be the same kinds of medicines that you would use to treat. And again, I'm not a doctor, but I think it would be like a gabapentin or something. That I don't take medication for it. It's not at that point for me. But I would, again, love to hear from anyone who feels this all the time. Ooh.
Lo, I think I was kind of mentioning number 7 earlier, right? Is this the same thing where you get a sort of visual snow? This is a rare thing.
Yes. I mean, I never heard it described the way you described it, as like an eye worm. Is that what I don't know.
I think I've heard them referred to as like floaties, but yeah, this might be somewhat.
That makes sense. I had this symptom again with my first attack and then never after. And when I tried to describe it to my doctor, he did look at me like I was like out to lunch. For me, it was probably had to do with the way I was describing it. It looked like I had a spinning wheel. It looked like the loading icon was constantly in my field of vision, which that icon is annoying enough if your screen is frozen and you're like trying to make stuff happen. It was in my field of vision the whole time. This is it doesn't necessarily, it's not going to look like the spinning wheel for everyone, but some kind of thing, visual snow, I think is what it's called, can be a symptom of MS. It can happen in conjunction with other visual symptoms. So optic neuritis or double vision, those kinds of things. Fortunately, it completely resolved for me. Like the blurriness of the optic neuritis never completely resolved, but I don't have that.
When I read this, I thought visual snow was something kind of like, if you close your eyes really hard for like 30 seconds and then open them, and then there's kind of all this noise going on, like what you see on the TV, that white noise. That's kind of what it made me think of. But the loading screen thing is interesting. That would be annoying. I hate waiting for those things.
Yeah, it didn't take over my entire field of vision. It was like one little spot.
Are you a late sleeper, or is insomnia a symptom or rare symptom, or what is it?
So there's some theories here too that I party hard. It depends what you define by partying. Yeah.
Staying up to 11 and drinking a glass of wine that's party hard, I think.
I think drinking the hiccup water at 10 o'clock, like that was throwing all caution to the wind. Oh my God.
I'm just imagining Carrie standing there like chug, 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 chug.
Totally. So. Yeah. It sucks. Oh my God. It's awful. It happened to me once right before I had to get on a plane. And I like to stay dehydrated before I have to fly because it's just a thing. But you can live with hiccups. Anyway. Insomnia, more than 70% of people with MS have a sleep disorder. Painsomnia, I like to call it, urinary urgency, restless leg, the effort it takes to turn over in bed. All of these things can interrupt our sleep, but there is also some evidence that MS itself may disrupt sleep, and I believe it. Like, I haven't slept through the night probably in 20 years, and it's terrible. It's really, like Professor G says, sleep is probably the most performance-enhancing agent we know, and that applies to everyone, not just people with MS. You know how good you feel after a good night's sleep, and not sleeping well exacerbates absolutely every MS symptom. It sucks.
Yeah, I feel that. A good night's sleep is critical, right? So,
and that's, I guess, like all this to say, if you are struggling to sleep, like bring this up with your medical team, because, and who am I to even say? I haven't cracked it. I haven't solved it. I have done all the hacks. Recently, I bought satin pajamas because I'm struggling to turn over in the night. It's like a whole multi-step production. And so I thought low friction pajamas would help me turn over, and they do.
Oh.
But they also Yeah, it's great until I'm getting up in the morning and then I like slide off the mattress.
Right. Okay.
Onto the floor. I slid off the couch last night.
Oh,
It's
no.
like
They're too slippery.
it solved one problem and it created another
You
one.
need to get just like patches of cotton or something that interrupt, like on the back of the legs, so you don't, if you get up, you don't totally slip off. I don't know.
Yeah, you invent that, Alex, and I'll invest in it.
We have like actually a ton of machinery in our bedroom to like help us sleep better. And maybe it solves these problems. Like we have an air purifier, right? That was like a COVID and forest fire thing that we started, but now we just do it all the time. We have a humidifier, so that helps, not keep the room so dry and things like that. And then we each have a fan on our nightstands to keep cool, right? Like it's weird. Like our condo building, sometimes they turn off the heat and they don't turn off the heat like until later in the year, right? Later into the spring or something like that, and it's scorching outside and there's no AC because it's either AC or it's heat. So we had to get these fans. We have one big stand-up fan and two little desktop fans for like our bedroom. So it's just like constant cool air circulating. But I sleep through the night and Nicole seems to mostly sleep through the night. So
Does she?
Yeah.
I'm impressed. Good for her.
yeah.
I also have like a whole setup. We have the HEPA filter. I sleep with a sleep mask, blackout curtains. I
Yes.
make it cold like an ice box, but then I also take a hot water bottle to bed. Earplugs. It's a whole thing.
I know. I had to cave and get those earplugs that keep coming up on Instagram. They keep invading my life. I'm not.
Oh, the like permanent ones. Are they any good?
Ooh, they're okay. They're like. Okay, I'll just say their name, but I don't want to endorse them necessarily. They're the loop ones, but it's because they're so incessant. And I found them like off Facebook Marketplace, so I didn't pay loop because that's annoying, and I'm annoyed by their ads. But
Okay, wait. You bought like secondhand earplugs?
no. They were in the box.
Okay,
They were sealed. They were sealed.
Okay, good,
They were just
good,
cheap,
good.
but those help, and like all of those things together, it sounds like you have to get suited and booted just to go to bed. But I feel like it does kind of help, and if you're having trouble sleeping through the night, like even I sometimes can't get through the night, but with these things, like even I have a alarm clock that wakes me up with light, that's more for the winter, right? Where it's like pitch black
Yeah.
every morning. But
Because actually, they say, the famous they,
Yeah.
that if you need an alarm clock to wake up, that you are not getting enough sleep, that you're sleep deprived.
okay. I guess
So,
that's
good on
my
that.
diagnosis. I'm sleep deprived.
Yeah, like you should be waking up naturally. If you're getting enough sleep, you should wake up naturally.
I mean, I do wake up naturally, but I mean, I need it to get up in the morning to go to work, right? In the winter when it's unnatural. It's fundamentally unnatural. This is just an opinion to get up at 6 a.m.
We're
to go
supposed
to
to
work. That sucks.
hibernate for the winter, like bears. Right?
Yeah, let me sleep till 9. I'll start working at like 3. It's fine. I'll finish at 5:30. It's all good, right?
Let's move on to food,
anyways.
Alex.
Food is my thing.
What's your favorite food? Are you like a salty or sweet kind of guy?
I'm an all flavor kind of guy, but my favorite food right now that I like to make, and I enjoy eating as much as I do making it, is this Arabic breakfast dish called fool, which just means fava beans, but it's like super simple. It's like onions, tomatoes, garlic, lemon, and fava beans, and it's like a stew. And I usually eat it with like some pita bread or some rice, and it's savory, so it's like salty, I guess. And yeah, I make it every week, and Nicole likes it, and I can make enough for like lunch the next day. I love it.
It sounds delicious, but I'm questioning the breakfast vibes. Like, where does your coffee fit into like garlic, before or after?
Yeah, so like it's a culturally different thing, I guess. But like I'm sure because I think Egyptians eat it the most. That's what I've heard, and it's supposed to make you happy. That's why they say Egyptians are really happy people, because they eat tons of food.
Well, they have good coffee too. I'm like,
But shakshuka is like a breakfast thing too, right? And you see it a lot on like like lunch menus or dinner menus, and you're like, what is it doing there? But I make it for dinner too, to be fair. So it's good all times of the day. But I'm getting worried now because I feel like we're gonna find something like a symptom that's not good for flavors or something.
This surprised me and is upsetting. Like long before COVID took away taste, MS can alter your sense of taste. So apparently it is uncommon but not rare. 15 to 32% of people with MS may experience altered taste. I was following a University of Pennsylvania study where MRI scans confirmed the MS lesions that were responsible for this horrifying symptom. In this particular study, 32% showed diminished salty taste. 25% experienced less sweet taste, 22% lost sour, and 15% were missing bitter. And I just, wow. My heart goes out to anyone who has this symptom. At least I think with COVID, taste comes back. So I don't know if anyone is experiencing this. It's interesting to me too that there's this breakdown of which tastes might be missing, and maybe it's not all of them. I don't know. To me, it's just sounds, I guess I could live without sour, but sweet and salty.
Yeah. And I like my bitter thing too, like I like a nice Campari Spritz, I couldn't really lose a taste for that, I feel like. But, I lost my taste for like 48 hours. Okay. So not really a long amount of time, but when I had COVID, I had lost a sense of taste. And it was some of the most depressing 48 hours I've ever experienced. Like no flavor, anything. And I wasn't eating like super flavorful stuff. I couldn't. But even like the soup and the saltines that I put in the soup or whatever, zero flavor. Like you're just drinking hot water and like cardboard noodles. It sucked. So my heart goes out to anybody experiencing that sort of stuff. That sucks.
I don't know if there are meds for that. I knew a guy years ago who had lost taste because of something that had happened during a dental procedure. And he said that he ended up just eating more because he was trying to, like, he never felt satiated from the food, which I guess can happen if you're not like experiencing the whole. And I'm wondering now also if smell probably can be effed up by MS too. I want to add that dry mouth can be like a secondary or tertiary symptom of some of the medications that we take, maybe lack of hydration, these kinds of things, and that can hinder and impede our ability to taste. So troubleshoot that if you have dry mouth, like work on keeping your mouth hydrated. And other than that, I don't know what else you can do, but I hope there's something. I hope there's some medication or that it's temporary or whatever, because
yeah, that's at least that it's temporary would be a nice assurance.
I can't imagine this disease, right? The worst symptom is the one you're going through at any given time. It's hard to say.
All right, fair enough.
We did do an episode called The Worst Symptom of MS, which I recommend you check out. Spoiler alert, it's fear.
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of hand in hand with this last symptom. And I think it's important for us to bring it up because it's not something that's talked a lot about. And it could be something where you might benefit from getting some medical attention. So this symptom is PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, which is often the result of receiving an MS diagnosis, which we all know can be a very scary time. Some people might find relief in the diagnosis depending on what you've been through to get to that diagnosis, but for others it can be a really traumatic event and can cause actual PTSD.
Yeah, and it kind of sounds like there is some overlap between MS and symptoms of PTSD, right? So things like insomnia and anxiety, fatigue, cognitive function, these are all things like, they seem to be parallel in both. And so an MS diagnosis, I think it can hit you like a brick wall, right? So it's not cool, but it's unsurprising a little bit, I guess, from the outside to hear that PTSD may be triggered by MS, because it is shocking to hear that, right? So,
and I think every symptom we've talked about today on this list could possibly be caused by something else. So it is important to know your body and to tease apart symptoms so that you can make sure you're managing everything as best as you can.
We ended the last episode with $1 a day habit of keeping warm, and I feel like I want to stay on the life hack tip. So do you have another one?
I sure do, Alex. I feel like I am the last person to this party, but I have changed my life since we last spoke. I have been struggling in the mornings. Mornings are a difficult time for me, and I find making the coffee to be essential. Like, I need to put coffee into my body, but it takes a lot of effort and energy. I was making French press coffee, which requires boiling water. I spilled boiling water on my hand a couple of months ago. Just like, struggling in the morning, the weight of the kettle, all this stuff. So my husband started making the coffee for me in the mornings before he left for work. And it was lovely and a great help. But I don't always it's great. But if I don't get up right away, then the coffee is cold and it's not that great. And then you have to clean the French press.
I'm glad you're a hot coffee person.
Yeah, I need my coffee scalding. So
right. Same with me. Nicole's not like that. We make coffee every single morning. We make it in the same pot, but she's cool with having it cold, so she kind of just chills on it.
Nespresso machines, I always thought they were super irresponsible. I just learned that they're actually the most sustainable cup of coffee you can buy, and they were on sale. And now I just push a button and my coffee is done and hot and ready and delicious and beautiful. And thank you, Nespresso, for being amazing.
Is there like a link to this, how responsible it is? Because I'm sort of under the same understanding that it's like kind of wasteful, right? So
I really thought that also. I was reading an article in Fashion Magazine, actually, their sustainability issue, and they did some research. I will put this in the show notes, but it is the most sustainable cup of coffee, like right from the way they harvest the coffee to how they recycle the pods. Okay. They're killing it. And I got the machine on sale and it's changing my life. And, it's making my mornings good.
Nice. That's perfect. I mean, I'm kind of jealous of how easy they are. When I go to people's houses, they're like, "Oh, you want a coffee?" "Oh, only if you're making them." That's the typical response, right? And then they're like, "Oh, don't worry. It's like a machine, Nespresso or whatever the other Keurig one, right?" And then I'm like, oh, wasteful. So I'm like, I'm jealous because it's so fast and like it's right for you. It's just one coffee. But on the other hand, I'm like, sustainability. So I would like to learn more about this.
It is sustainable. I'm going to send you the receipts. Yeah. And
but a part of me wants,
I feel good about it.
Nespresso or Keurig, feel free to send me a machine so I can test this out.
I can't speak for Keurig. I don't know that they have done the same. I don't know that they have the same program in place that Nespresso does, but I think Nespresso's kind of killing it. So the
life hack is this instant coffee that's not like the typical freeze-dried powder crap.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it. It's not instant coffee.
It's just the instant. How do we word this now?
It's a delicious cup of coffee, and we've definitely. You know what? Everyone already knows Nespresso is awesome. They don't need me to tell them. I think we need to move on. Trippers, if something new and strange is going on with your body, it's important to talk to your doctor. Whether or not symptoms are caused by MS, your complaint shouldn't be dismissed. Even if it is just MS, don't assume nothing can be done. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, all the things, leave a review, and we want to know, what's the strangest MS symptom you've experienced? Leave a comment. We want to connect with you. Thanks for listening to Tripping on Air. Don't forget to visit us at trippingonair.com.